Who hasn't eaten lamb since they were 17. I'm just going to move all this stuff. There we go. Did it? I don't eat it because I'm a nice person. I eat it because I'm too lazy to chew it, but that's the truth of it. Okay, pardon? I could employ a chewer, couldn't I? Yeah, that's right. And in fact, yeah, my son he loves meat, so that's it. That's why I had a child, so he chooses meat. But I don't want him to regurgitate it and give it to me sort of pre-chewed. Yeah, a bit bird-like. I reckon you should lie on your back. We might stop that conversation because probably there's some people in the room going, that is really foul. Take a moment to notice where your mind is first. So we know your body is on the floor and you're lying on your back. Where is your mind? Is it in your body? Is it off doing shopping? Is it back thinking about the vertebrae? Is it shedding the relief of having thought about the vertebrae? Possibly. Or am I just projecting onto your mind? And that noticing of where your mind is just the same as noticing where your L5 is, or your big toe. Some of you might even have your mind in your big toe. You might have your big toe in mind. And notice the settling, or in the settling, actually, is that when, when your body goes quiet, is that when your mind starts roving? So bring them into some kind of harmony and use your mind to notice the distance between your 2 feet, the distance between your 2 knees, the distance between where you imagine that your hip joints are, or if you by some weird chance have an idea about where your hip joints are. It's rather a nebulous concept, hip joint. The distance between the 2 hip joints. The distance between, the rib angle at the base of the front of your rib cage. That's some kind of point on the left and the right. The distance between the 2 shoulder blades. Distance between the 2 points of the shoulder, so the tips of the roof of the shoulder, which actually is also the shoulder blade, that thing called the acromion, the very top of the shoulder. The distance between the left and the right of those 2 hips. The distance between the more proximal ends of the clavicles. So proximal meaning the closest to the center. So the ends that are at the top of your sternum, top of the chest bone. The distance between the left earlobe and the right earlobe. distance between the right eye, the outer corner of the right eye, and the outer corner of the left eye. That's kind of a stock take of various widths in your body. We often focus on length, so sometimes it's interesting to shake it up a bit and think about how wide we are. Not convinced. It's murky territory because we start getting into some of the murkier aspects of self-image, and my hips are too wide, or my nose is too wide, or my feet are too wide, or whatever. Anyway, now that we have that kind of established, how wide you are, left to right, you remember yesterday when you stood up and you swayed forwards and backwards, and you took those widths forwards and backwards, so that you didn't, they were moved through space. So the left and right moved through space equally. And you swayed from the ankles, start with, to find that position of equipoise where you were neither forward nor backward. And then you did the same thing with the mass of your head, tipping forward and backward on top of the first. Essentially, most of that tipping is on the top of the first vertebrae. I didn't move, Jenny. I didn't move. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. The environment. Yeah, okay, I'll breathe. Huh? So remember how you tipped your chin forward towards your sternum, and you tipped your chin away, so the back of your head went towards, say, C7, and you found that position of equipoise there. So quietly roll up to sitting and find that position again for yourself in sitting. Like, can you go straight there, or do you need to reproduce some of the exploratory or, territory mapping movements? Find it in sitting, so that your face is neither tipping back nor tipping forward, that you are oriented and you have that sense of orienting to the horizon, and the plane of your face is more or less vertical. And do you remember the signpost, the sense of how do you know that you're in the same position? So what's the proprioceptive memory? What's the proprioceptive memory trace like of where that equipoise kind of position is? And do you use your eyes to help that? So do you use some visual signposts, or do you use proprioceptive signposts? And so as I was exploring some of the aspects of this FI, and this idea of keeping your eyes oriented to the horizon and the plane of the face still, in that it's not still, but the orientation stays the same and everything else is moving around it. I was doing it in my apartment, and there's a glass door because the sun was going down and you get the reflection of yourself. So I could actually look at myself and watch my face staying in the same orientation, which is a very interesting visual feedback. So we often don't do that. We often don't use visual feedback because we're trying to frame more acuity, more appreciation in the proprioceptive system. So that was fun. You can try that yourself in front of a mirror, doing some of these movements, and how easy is it or not to keep the vertical, horizontal lines, as it were, of your face unchanging. So they move through space, but not in orientation. Very hard to say in languages. In a way, it's easier to do in reality. you know, this language around keeping the face always in this, you know, the same orientation. Anyway, that's my problem. Lie on your right side. Well, actually, it's your problem because you have to understand what I'm saying. It's a joint problem. It's a shared problem, a shared challenge. And once you've found this sort of stable way, you're with your left leg stacked on top of your right leg, could you take your left arm back behind you and slowly find a way eventually that you could actually have your shoulders on the floor. Now, if you were a novice class, then this in itself would be, this is one of the sort of arm reach and roll kind of lessons. But again, this is sort of you know, another example of where this is a complex series where we simply go to this position where your pelvis is more or less on the side, and it stays more or less on the side, and your arms are down by your sides because the upper part of you is supine, is on the floor. Bring your arms somewhat closer to you so they're not outstretched in that JC as much as there. And your face is now oriented to the ceiling as much as is comfortable. Now, if there's a little slide in your knees, that's fine. But essentially, you have a fairly significant twist. Now, I didn't worry about this too much with you guys because I knew we were doing a lot of the twisting this morning and a lot of this sort of preparation work about lengthening the, you know, the flexors in front of you to be able to allow this twist between the upper body and the lower body. Our work has been done, so to speak. But nevertheless, if this is uncomfortable for you, you know, pad yourself up. Take care. Now, slowly and gently lift your left shoulder towards the ceiling a little bit, so away from the floor and slowly down. And take many approximations of this. Because for almost everybody, you know, it's your pectoral muscles that are lifting it, your shoulder towards the ceiling. And then to lower it slowly, they have to work eccentrically. Remember, we talked about this in January last year. They have to work to lower. They're working and lengthening at the same time. So they're working and shortening to lift your shoulder towards the ceiling. And then they're working to lengthen, to lower your shoulder gently. Now, because for most people, they retain a lot of activity, it's actually quite neurologically hard for them to lengthen in this active way. So for most of you, the first couple of times you did it, as you lowered your shoulder, it would kind of went but. You feel that? It was a bit jerky. And then as you keep going, your nervous system gets a lot of feedback about that jerking and starts to be able to smooth it out, like control the muscle to let go in a more coordinated fashion. Now, you could actually just not work eccentrically and just let your shoulder drop. That would just be your gravity taking it. That would mean turning the tonus off completely in the pec. Right, now, I'm getting technical, but I hear that that's because I trust that you will, you know, absorb as much as you need to of the technical. And you can go smaller, you can go even slower, but the experience is that pecs are a muscle for most people that are pretty lively all the time. Okay, good. Leave the left shoulder resting wherever it is. And now do the same thing with the right shoulder. Lifting a little bit, letting it come back to the floor. Now the range might not be as big here, so your attention might need to be more careful. And what's the influence of lifting the shoulder and the way the arm lies on the floor? How does it change the distribution of weight along the length of your arm? It will have a very subtle influence on the way you're lying on the floor. And because this is an unusual thing to do, I would be guessing that most people haven't, spent a long period of their life perfecting this movement. Notice how it is to do a movement that is quite novel, and is your, as Jane said this morning, when you can't do something or it's difficult or it's unusual, that's when your default habits kind of pop up. So what do? Push harder, give up, go smaller, go slower, go faster, try a different trajectory, check it out on the left again. Who knows? There's a whole lot of strategies, some that will serve you better or worse than others. And if you need to come out of this position at any time, please do, because I'm just going to soldier on. Again, this is, you are an experienced class, so I'm taking liberties with you. Let me go ahead and lift alternately. So lift the left shoulder and lower, lift the right shoulder and lower. Notice your breathing. What do I mean when I say notice your breathing? So I can get away with that shorthand in here because you know what kind of things to notice. If you use that with the general public, you've never done much when through movement. Notice your breathing is a big load of hokey, like notice the cars. So what? Why? What do you mean notice the cars? What about them? Why? So you're alternating. Do you let one completely settle before you lift the other one? Or do you lift the other one as the other one is settling? Could you do either? And breathe. If you're standing up, this would look like one of those old-fashioned dances, the jiggly dances in the 60s or something. Taking, what if that dance is in the taking shoulders forward. And just a couple of times before you have a complete rest on your back, lift both shoulders at the same time and lower both at the same time. And again, notice what happens along the length of both arms and how the lift influences the contact of both arms. This will be different for different people because some people have both hands facing down, some people have both hands facing up, some people have one arm down, one hand down and one hand up. So I'm not going to even predict what you might feel around that. And leave it and roll on your back and rest. And take care of yourself, and if I kept you in a fairly demanding position for a long time, so just allow that to unravel a little bit. For some people that don't know what I'm talking about when I say demanding, because actually sleep like. And roll onto your left side. And again, find where you are truly on your side, in terms of your pelvis and your legs, one leg stacked up on the other, navel. Now quietly, gently bring your right arm behind you. Find a way to assume this position where your top half is lying on your back and your bottom half is still on, more or less on the side. And where's the compromise here? That this is a sustainable position, an ecologically friendly position. And that your head is clear where your head is. You can breathe. And very gently begin to lift up your right shoulder away from the floor. So I'm going to say up towards, relative to the ceiling. So lift it forward relative to yourself. And slowly lower it. And because it has more freedom of movement in a way, maybe that eccentric lowering in those front chest muscles, the pectorals, is more apparent in this position than it was when the right shoulder was close to the floor. Maybe not. Again, notice how you tackle, how you get interested in the movement, lowering, if indeed you have it, and maybe you don't. And noticing the influence down the length of your right arm as you lift it lower. And have your hands a little bit closer to your side. Like some of you do. You'll notice that the closer your hands are to your pelvis, the easier it's sort of clearer about lifting your shoulder. Your arms are really wide. The shoulder is sort of roll around the length down. When you're satisfied up to a point with the moving of the shoulder forward and backward, now lift the left shoulder away from the floor towards the ceiling and back. Influence from the way your arm takes its weight on the floor. You lift your shoulder as you're breathing in, or do you lift it as you're breathing out? So, and this is the difference, you know, when Feldenkrais wrote those lessons in the ATM book, he was very prescriptive. Like, you know, you engage the flexor, sort of front muscle group on an exhalation. So that's the thing to do. Whereas later, it became much more open about it. So lift on the in-breath, lift on the out-breath, lift on the held breath. And then this idea about being able to breathe whether you're lifting or not. You can lift whether you're breathing or not. So that breathing becomes a non-negotiable. That can happen no matter what you're doing. So you're not yoking a movement with a breath like he does in the ATM. You know, it's an historically interesting change. Now alternate the two shoulders, so as the right shoulder lifts and lowers and the left shoulder lifts and lowers. And again, you can make it two distinct movements, or you can make it one movement. So there's a lift on one side as the other lowers, and then a lift on the other side as the other one lowers. So try those two different kinds of timing. Again, taking care if this position is demanding for you. Not demanding, ignore that. What happens? What's the chain of events above your shoulders and the influence of your shoulders below, down into your spine, into the vertebrae that you were sensing and experiencing in the ATM just now? Can you still track those vertebrae even though they're in a twist? So each of them have a slightly different orientation. Rest for a moment, and then the final one is lifting both shoulders at the same time, so they both go towards the ceiling, they both come back. And how's the smoothness of the movement going? So what is your nervous system learning about letting go in a controlled way as opposed to just letting go? Beautiful. And slowly lengthen your legs in a way that just brings you quietly onto your back. Beautiful. I remember during my training that it was one of the things that I noticed at home, that my husband said that I could roll over in bed without him feeling it. You know, you can start to be extremely economical and quiet and efficient in your movement, and this ability to simply find a way to lengthen your legs that brings you onto your back, roll over, with minimum drama. So again, Alison, if you're asking how God and Christ influenced my life, helped me to realise that unnecessary drama that I used to create. And you know, what we experience in an ATM is we strip movements back to the bare necessities, and we get rid of the drama, the parasitic, the unnecessary, the neurotic about the movement. Now, it's not to say that I still don't invest a lot of my life with drama. It's still an ingrained habit. However, I have the awareness now to notice, oh, that is drama. And that's parasitic action. I actually don't need that. I don't need that storyline. It's not helping me function. It's like I don't need to hold my breath when I drag my leg up. You know, it's a neurosis. I don't need to do it. Roll onto your right side and roll your upper body back onto the back of your shoulders. So your face is towards the ceiling, your left shoulder is towards the floor. And once again, lift your shoulders away from the floor towards the ceiling, and then lower them towards the floor. Lower to the floor. Could you have this little idea that your chin could go a little bit closer to the ceiling? So there's something about this, the the shoulders going back and pressing into the floor can help you towards the ceiling. And then your chin comes back and your shoulders go forward. Something about bringing your shoulders forward that could help you tuck your chin in. And then as your shoulders go back towards the floor, that you poke your chin out. And noticing that as your chin goes towards the ceiling, that the weight shifts more and more towards the top of your head. So how can you use this forward and then backward movement of your shoulders to shift where the weight is on your, the contact of your head more to the top of your head? So rolling from the back of your head up to the top of your head. And you find a way that your shoulders could help support that movement. What has to happen in your chest? What has to happen in your sternum? Has to. Very little that has to happen. What would be interesting and maybe supportive of you moving the weight, contact of your head more towards the crown, where would your sternum go to support that? It's a pretty interesting movement. So you can play immeasurably in a gentle, caring kind of way. So in the instructions, I'm going back into my process of trying to figure this out. When I was doing this on the floor myself, the instructions aren't clear about when you roll your head up to the crown. It says lift and lower your shoulders. I'll read out exactly. Lift lower shoulders, slide onto top of head. That's all it says. It doesn't say what the timing is. So therefore, I tried both ways. So if I slide onto the crown of my head with my shoulders forward, or I slide onto the top of my head with my shoulders back. Now for me, it made more sense experientially and anatomically and biomechanically to do it when my shoulders went back. However, it is possible to do it both ways. So if you want to have a little try, you can test it out. This is where you get to test the teacher. Is she right or is she wrong? And that's the beautiful thing about APMs is, of course, you get people to do the easier and the harder versions so that they're satisfied for themselves. Marvellous. The most marvellous method for indecision for the teacher. So the head stays on the floor, but you slide so that your chin goes towards the ceiling and you've got that bit. It's almost like you wanted to look and see who's lying above you, who's on the floor, headward. And if you did that movement, you used your eyes to direct the movement, would your shoulders come forward or would they go back? Is that different? Does it help when I give it some functionality? Ruth and I were looking at this ridiculous news item in e-journal that came into my inbox. There's this new craze in gyms called functional exercise. And it's the biggest load of bollocks I've ever seen. You're lifting all these weights and swinging them through because that's functional. Functional moves like pushing and pulling, but you're in weirdo positions like push-up positions, lunges, and extreme positions. And I thought maybe I'm being a bit harsh. We find weird functions in there. However, can you feel that functional organisation about looking at who's lying, above your head? Help that to organise the rolling of the head, and therefore what's happening in the chest and the sternum, and the vertebrae in the back of the chest, and then the return journey. So your head rolls back. That's it. leave it, and find a way to minimal effort, minimal fuss, come onto your back. Find a way to take your leg pelvis onto the left side and leave the top of you on the back, on your back. So can you do it this way now? So before we were being very systematic and going all on your side and taking upper back. But now, because you're getting familiar with this movement, and there's this differentiation between the upper and the lower body, can you do it the other way? Yeah. There is an ATM like this. And now in this position, experiment with this idea of starting off by lifting your shoulders away from the floor and then back. And then gradually morphing that movement into finding a time when it would make sense to you that you could roll your head more towards the crown. And as we did on the other side, at first it was kind of this intellectual exercise of taking your chin away from your chest. And then I fed you another kind of signpost about taking the weight more on the crown of your head. And then I fed you another kind of signpost, which was more functional, about as if you wanted to look, across the floor above you. And again, noticing for yourself how you layer that, learning those instructions that help you clarify more and more. And also knowing in ATM, sometimes we won't clarify anymore because we want you to struggle manfully and womanfully, Because if we tell you exactly what the punchline is, you won't really think about the joke. We jump in with the punchline too quickly. Is it easier on this side, harder on this side? Slide your legs back down long so that you sink your back fully. Arrange your arms so that your elbows are further away from your sides than your hands. So your shoulders, feel out what that does to your shoulders. Front of the chest. In fact, I'm thinking, looking now, I didn't feel this on myself, but I'm seeing it in class. This is bringing your shoulders forward. And now you're going to take your head back towards the crown, so your shoulders are forward. So that's interesting. So go ahead, take your chin away from your chest and arch the back of your neck so that you're going more towards the crown, and notice that you start to, the arch in your chest will grow so that your chest starts coming away a little bit from the floor, or at least lightening. And could the movement grow such that actually you also tilt your pelvis so that your tailbone goes more? So your pelvis goes forward, so that your spine goes into, you know, a Sydney Harbour Bridge arch from the base of your head to your coccyx. And go slowly, but that's the kind of image. How would you find a way to arch your whole spine away from the floor? Ah, now I can see what's happening. So yes, for some of you, by starting with your shoulders forward, now they've got room to go down. See, now I'm figuring out stuff with the help of you. But why he's got the elbows out, maybe. You know, so this is our learning journey. And again, you know, as a teacher, you're getting an insight into my process that I wouldn't normally do. Aren't you privileged? That's it. And where does your belly go? So your belly kind of puts us out. That's the Alan Costello term. Put things the belly out. And certainly your lower ribs go towards the ceiling. So for some people, arching this way is like this is where they live. This is Kylie Minogue. This is where Kylie Minogue lives. And you've spent a lot of time learning how to have your spine nice and flat on the floor. You can see one of my antibodies about this lesson. I arch already. It's one of my superpowers. So to go more into my pattern is, you can see why it hurts and upsets them. And then come back. That's it. Now, for some people who like arching, as you arch this way, keep going and come up to sitting. So use that arching movement to sit up. For others of you, you'll go, what the fuck, and you won't do it, and don't do it. So for some people, that movement makes perfect sense. I'm sorry, I just dropped the F-bomb. I've been so good. But you will have that, like I read that instruction, and I do go WTF. But for other people, it's like, well, of course, that's, you know, I was at a dance performance where, you know, this was one of the key moves all the time, which is essentially, yeah. So you come back with your head hanging back. See, now for Gloria, she goes WTF. I mean, most people. But for the super archers in this world, the native Sydney Harbour Bridge people, this is not a problem. For Mark, not such a problem, right? He's done what's the big deal. Okay? So this is the diversity, and it's not, you know, it's not like we're making a judgment here. This is just people's different capacity. Okay, good. And once you come up to sitting, stay there and cross your legs. So you start to see the complexity of this lesson, and it's not complex for some people. For me, that's really complex. Yeah. So even though I've made a big deal about lesson, it's my deal, my big deal, not necessarily everybody else's big deal. But that's a level of organisation that we're going to keep on exploring. So Dennis Leary's just thrown that in there, just as a throwing down the gauntlet. Okay, so coming up to sitting and cross your legs. And find that place where your face is in the equipoise. So it's neither forward nor back, it's oriented towards the front of the room. And you can have your eyes open or closed. And FYI for you when you teach in ATMs, when you do a lesson in sitting, everybody opens their eyes. It's really, you get very used to talking to a room full of speaking people. And now I go, oh my God, and I start thinking about what I'm doing. And then I think, I don't care. I'm just going to sit like this. And one of my colleagues said, oh, I could never be a trainer. I don't sit well enough. And I went, oh, anyway, okay. So eyes open or eyes closed. I can deal with it. And have your hands resting by your sides, fingers facing forward. So by the sides or back, and you decide. Okay, you've done this yesterday. Legs crossed. Whichever way is forward, because you know you have to fall. And again, my injunction to you is that you put as much weight as you're prepared to tolerate on your hands. That's entirely your decision. So if there's no weight on the hands, that's fine. They're really just there as a little in-between step. Right? You know, this is just an approximation, having this there. Now begin to go down onto the right elbow, like you did yesterday. Just the fingers forward. So that is the one thing. If you're going to be on your hands, either have your fist or fingers, because if your hands are going backwards, when you go back, you're going to really push your, you're really going to overextend it. Yeah. So just to the right elbow and back. And as you roll back, and as you come forward, can you get the sense that it's your belly coming forward first? So you may round your back to go back. I'll let you get away with it today. Not much longer. This is harder. And now, but when you come forward, come back with your belly first. So the other proviso is that your face stays oriented. So that you go back slowly enough that the eyes on the prize. If I'm the prize, your eyes are on me. But I would suggest you pick something more simple, somewhere less. But so the verticality of your face stays the same and the horizontality of your face. It's going to translate through space, but the orientation is not going to change. Okay, leave that, go back up, go down onto the left elbow. If you want to, if it's easy to. So remember this morning I said, you know, what this lesson is a classic, but can you be satisfied staying with 2 centimeters of going back? Because it's about staying in quality, quite really good. You could, if you are happy to go back with quality, you can go all the way back onto the elbow. And you can come off the elbow with equal quality. Look, and do it. See how much effort it is. Like fall back onto your elbow if you want to. Hold your breath if you're going to fall. Multiple fracture. That's right. You're very delicate. Now, if you want to fall, but then find out how do you come back up. Can you push your belly forward enough, and your head goes back? So there's something about that movement that might ring a bell. No, like when you came off the floor from the top of your head. So that movement bring you back off your elbows. In a way. So it's kind of like the end of your sternum lifts you up. It's not as exaggerated because, of course, I've said to you the plane of your face has to stay the same. It's that idea. And if the spirit is willing and the flesh is not weak, go in the direction of both elbows. As far as is reversible. And again, you know, if you're a thrill seeker, just try go too far, see what happens. I dare you. That's not film Christ. That is a naughty Susan. And again, for some people, this is no big deal. For other people, this is a big deal. How can you roll your pelvis forward? That will bring you back up to fitness. It's hard. Face is meant to stay fairly oriented. If you go all the way back, you actually can't. Because when you come back, you have to do that. But as much as possible, the intention is that you do that. So. And find a way to line your back. Low fuss. Have a well-earned rest. Roll over and come up to sitting. And have your legs crossed, but then straighten your right leg in front of you. So your left leg is still in the tailor position, and your right leg is lengthened. And you're leaning on your left hand with the fingers in front, and your right arm is held out in front of you around shoulder level. And now slowly go back in the direction of your left elbow. Feel free to adjust where your left hand is. And your eyes stay on the horizon. You go as far as you feel is reversible and come back up. You go, oh, Susan, why didn't you tell me to do this before? Well, why is it easier? Not now. And getting that sense that what brings you forward is pushing your belly and your sternum forward. There's something about the right hand, it's almost like you can follow the right hand forward. How can the right arm help get that sense of being pulled forward from the middle? Don't shift the foot. I saw you doing that. That's a very clever cheat, but don't do it. But your foot, you had hooked your foot. You were holding on with your toes onto the back of your thigh. Oh, okay. All right. Just so long as you're not cocking your foot up. Yeah. You could put the leg over the foot if you want to, so long as you don't hook the foot into your thigh. The left foot's got to be passive. If it's not passive, pull it out. Does that make sense? So the point is there that it's not, because you could hook your toes under your thigh, and you could actually use your ankle muscle to pull you up. That's not the point. So if you're using your foot to pull you up, don't have it under there. Take it out. I can keep, if it's just keeping it in place, that's fine. The point is that foot quiet? Honestly, honest engines. Not saying they're fine, but can you say it has my permission? So these are good questions because Julie is clarifying what a deal breaker is. What is a variation that's not acceptable? And that's the thing, and that's your job as a teacher, is to understand the lesson enough to know what is acceptable or not. What's an acceptable variation? Okay, good. And swap over. Oh, now before you do that, next time you've learned something. Sorry, probably will done. You've learned something about how you can organize your spine because your leg is extended and your arm is extended. That helps you automatically organize your trunk in a way that helps you to go back and forth with you. Having the arm out tricks your trunk into organizing itself in a way that does make coming forward and backward easier. Did everybody feel that it was easier? Most people would. Not everybody, but most people would. They think, why didn't I do that before? However, that organization can still be there without the hand being lengthened now because you've learned it. So put your hand on your throat and continue to do that movement with the same feeling of organization centrally. Yeah, same side. So if you want to do it with the arm forward first, just to believe me. So you actually don't, in the end, you don't need the arm forward because you've actually learnt what the organization is in your trunk. And your hand can be on your throat. And really, he's getting you to put it on your throat there because he's also wanting you to feel that you're not craning forward with your head. Like my client with hip actually. Can you show everything again? Yeah? And you feel that you can still get the organization if you've still got the idea of having your arm forward. Maybe. You're a work in progress. You don't have to get it today. I've been mucking around with this for, when did we graduate, Ruth? 91? We would have done this in maybe 1990. Damn long time to not get something. Okay, I can do good myself. Yeah. Okay, good. Now swap sides. So your right leg is bent up, your left leg is long. You have some weight on your right hand, not weight necessarily, but you have your right hand and fingers forward on the floor, and the left arm is shoulder length. And slowly, slowly find a way to lower yourself gently, elegantly in the direction of your right elbow, and your eyes stay on the horizon. Starting to get that big cat look, right? Feel the big cat in the big cat thing is like, yeah, I can, with my eye on the prize, I can go back and I can go forward, and I can go back and I can go forward, and my eyes can be organized to ride on top of this machinery. Okay, and then once the trick of having the arm forward, that gives an idea to your trunk about how to organize itself to lower and come back, so the eccentric down and the concentric back up. Then bring your left hand to your throat and just check that your neck muscles are staying soft. Because if they're bracing and pulling you forward, then your head can't do this mobile adjustment. So that's another point of the kata, is that you are lying down and sitting up, but you're not efforting in your neck because your head is free, because you've got a flow that's going to kick the Jesus out of you. You've got to keep your eyes on the judo aspect of it, right? So your neck is soft. I could show you this disgusting video I saw on LinkedIn this morning with some smart ass student who's got this boy with CP sit up. And honestly, it made me sick because I wanted to throw up. He's there going, oh, look how clever I am, getting this boy in a wheelchair to do sit ups. And all these other exercise people saying, oh, that's so inspiring. And it's disgusting. It is disgusting. It's just horrible. This horrible crunching. Ugh. Poor kid. Anyway, that's not. We're not doing that here. We're not into this effort. You know, in this exercise, dude's holding this poor little kid's legs on the ball and stuff. Going to break my habit of not coming to with the full force of my parachute. Beautiful. That's it. Good. And find a way to roll back onto your back. Yeah. 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 Then there's a different movement. Yeah. And we're soon going to abandon the arms behind it. Yeah. So you can do it on the knuckles. It's a real compromise because you'll get a different sensation. My best is to have your fingers curled under and don't put as much weight on, like just keep them quite close to you, and almost no weight. They're like an outrigger of a yacht. Yeah, so that they're not doing any work. Oh, it's the wrist. Okay. You can get a little, maybe some little rolled up things and put in your hand, so that when you're leaning, you're still leaning on this heel of your hand, but you're not in such extreme extension. But if you can do it on the knuckles, it's okay. Put them under. Yeah, and even fold them up or something. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can make them even higher. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Tim, line your back and have a little rest. And come up to sitting. No rest for the wicked here, and you're all very wicked. Have both legs long in front of you. And your arms out in front and the shoulder width. And again, keep your eyes on the horizon and start to go back and then come forward. Belly first. It's reversible and you can breathe. Non-negotiable. You've got that belly rolling forward, Lloyd. Feel the difference? For some people, you know, having the legs crossed and bent, it does, you know, you forget that you can roll your shoulders. So for today, your back is arching backwards as you go back and then arching forwards as you go forward. That's today. Tomorrow is going to be different. You can roll back onto your sit bones, behind your sit bones. However, you're going to arch forward. Yeah, that's it. Bring yourself up. So that tomorrow's a different set of food. See how that pushing forward of the belly can erect you up. Keep your eyes on the horizon. Now you put your arms down and see if you can get the same kind of organization in your trunk. So you can put your arms on your throat, or one in front of your throat and one behind. Keep your neck soft. And slowly, slowly. And this is not a crunch. You know, we're not doing gymnastics here. This is about organizing in a way that is elegant and repeatable, and no judders in the belly as you're going back. Juddering going, but you're just going too fast. So your head is soft and able to move. So if your target was moving around, your head could follow it and track it. So this movement is not dependent on working the neck. It's dependent on working the hips. That's it. Lovely. Breathing, breathing, breathing. And that's it. Rest on your back. Completely, utterly. You've got it all. Good. And you're thinking, why is she making such a deal about this lesson? It's quite straightforward. And this is the beautiful thing about our work, is that by doing it, you know, like me being the student on the floor, I learn more about it. By teaching it, I learn even more. Like, you know, it's such a fantastic thing. We can honestly say, it's true in most things, but, you know, the teacher is often learning the most, because I'm getting the benefit of watching all of you guys learning. So this process of coming and watching you is helping my learning, preparing for this one. Right? I have to pay you. Sure. Check is in the post. I haven't got your address. Yes, it's online. You think online. Lying people speak out well. Roll over onto your side and come up to sitting and then standing. Now, I could keep you in the process and make you go back down and come back up with your eyes on the horizon, but I'm not going to. Like, I've let it go. Enough's enough. Why do I make the decision? Maybe it's because I've had enough. Maybe I think because you've had enough. It is what it is. However, I will get you back into the process as you stand up, so that you can come back into yourself and find out what is new and what is familiar. So you are still there. The you that you knew before is still there. And maybe there's something interesting. Maybe you've suddenly become a little bit even more interesting. So maybe you've become interesting, like you weren't interesting. You've become even more interesting, Judith. It's always fascinated me. Now I'm even more fascinated. No, I'm serious. I find you all fascinating. Not quite as fascinating as myself, but nearly. Would you like to fascinate yourself by walking and seeing what, does this have any influence on walking or not? You know, and again, leave room for your students to not feel something. They're not compelled to, which is really, we're really empowering students to feel or not feel. Feel or not feel, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in mind, that's all I know. Yeah. Now, I'm not seeing much of the supermodel today, but I think it's nice. Ah. Oh, you're not keeping your eyes on the horizon. Okay. You look pretty chilled out. Okay. Good.